Bienvenidas.
Bienvenidas, comadres and friends, to our March 2020 teleconference podcast. This is Karen Gonzalez of Las Comadres para las Americas Denver Book Club coordinator. We wish you and your familias health, safety, and love. We encourage you to put laughter into your life. Prayer and laughter help us relieve stress. I suspect we all need all the help we can get now. We want to remind you that all 2018 and 19 podcasts are now uploaded to our website. Feel free to download to listen to any of your favorite interviews. Mil gracias to Comadre Dora Abreu for doing this labor of love for us. Our March 2020 teleconference features Comadre Bricia Lopez and Compadre Javier Cabral, authors of Oaxaca, Home Cooking from the Heart of Mexico. We do not have a conversations with book this month, as we wanted you to have the opportunity to cook dishes and ask questions about any recipes you tried. Our plan got a bit derailed by the global emergency we are facing, but we have a few questions and comments we will share. Comadre Julia will manage this portion of the teleconference. But first, a bit of history about our book club. Our first book club gathering was in July 2004 in New York at Comadre Maria Ferrar's apartment. After a hiatus, it was restarted in March 2007. Comadre Johanna Castillo, at that time national organizer of the book club and former Comadres board member, said, "We are launching the book club to promote the work of Latino authors to every book lover, to bring our community to bookstores, and to support our writers. Now more than ever, we need to support our Latino authors. We encourage you to join our local book club in your city. We have clubs in 12 cities. Austin has 3 area book clubs. And if your city doesn't have one, why not help us start one? For more information about our book club, visit our website at latinolit.com. These teleconferences, Reading with Las Comadres, started in 2008, although we actually started the teleconferences in October of 2006. We are in our 14th year. We created the Reading with Las Comadres teleconferences and book club in an effort to entice everyone to read more Latino authors, to learn about Latino roots and different perspectives on Latino cultures and heritage. Our book club and teleconferences are open to all, not just Latinos. We are creating a space for everyone to explore the Latino writer's mind and soul as portrayed through the written word. So invite others to join us. We are very grateful to the publisher, Harry N. Abrams, for their support of this teleconference with gratis books. For more information about the authors and publishers, visit our website at latinolit.com. Bricia and Javier will be interviewed by Los Angeles Comadre Dora Herrera, who is a chef in her own right. Dora Herrera is a restaurateur whose family-run establishment has been bringing diners hungry for authentic Mexican food, the true flavor of Mexico since 1976. Yucca's restaurants. Customers span 3 to 4 generations of satisfied and loyal addicts to the small batch, quality-driven menu served out of the 8 feet by 10 feet converted shoeshine stand known fondly as the Hut. When not working, Dora enjoys giving back to her community by serving on the Friends of Los Feliz Library, the Public Media Group, Latino Community Council, and as an ambassador with the LA Area Chamber and the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce. Dora is a Spanish literature graduate of Brown University, the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurs Leadership Program, and the Multicultural Women Executive Leadership Program. Comadre Dora, take it away.
Good evening, all. This is Dora from Los Angeles. Let's get going. Bricia, in your introduction, you say, "I am in love with everything Oaxaca." And I have to agree with you there. I was there for the first time July of 2019, and the people, the food, the colors, the tradition, even the murals on the side of the buildings were just fabulous. Now, I was there during the Guelaguetza, so I would like you to tell us a little bit about what the Guelaguetza is and how you practice that tradition today.
Sure. Well, hi, Dora. I hope you're doing well.
Hi. Yeah, life is
I know it's rough times for everybody, but I, wishing you everybody the best, and Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Comadres, for having me today. It's an honor to be here with all of you. And thank you for waiting and being so patient. Well, I think that, I think you went in like the height of what Oaxaca is. I always tell people, like, I personally, I haven't been to Oaxaca and Guelaguetza time in about 7 years. But I always encourage people to go during that time. Even though it's probably the busiest you'll see it, the craziest you'll see it, it is really, I always compare that Guelaguetza season and like the Guelaguetza celebration. I think the closest thing to compare it to would be sort of like Mardi Gras or Carnaval in Brazil. It's just party and music and dance and lots of food. And I think it's just like a great season to go to Oaxaca. Guelaguetza itself, it's such a huge word. It also has a huge meaning. I always sort of divide it into 3 different meanings. The first meaning obviously being the Guelaguetza season in Oaxaca that you described when you were there in July. It's celebrated the last 2 Mondays of July every single year in Oaxaca. It is really a celebration that happens at the Guelaguetza Stadium. It is a huge open air stadium where different communities from Oaxaca come to the city, and they all represent their town through dance, through food, through culture, and it's almost like a show. There's a stage, there's a huge stadium that fits thousands of people, and the performances last up to 4 to 6 hours depending on the time, the performance you catch, and really depending on the ambience of the place. It's beautiful. There's a daytime show and then a nighttime show that happens, and then everything in between. It's just, there's calendas all over the street, there's food everywhere, there's so many different activities to go throughout the day. Now, Guelaguetza itself, that word, it's like a Zapotec word that means to share, to receive. It means reciprocity. It means, to give, to live knowing that the one meets the other. And the tradition really comes from years of these communities living sort of like this almost like a bartering system. My mom has a book that's called the Guelaguetza book. You can actually see pictures of her book at the end of our cookbook. And that was my grandma's Guelaguetza book, where, she was celebrating something, and someone was, they would say like, so-and-so brought me a sack of beans, and, and then that person would be celebrating something. So then I, in return, will return the favor. And that's how people would survive back then, through these Guelaguetza givings and offerings. And today, for us, that's really the way we see our restaurant. Our restaurant is a place where we can share our culture to the world and give Los Angeles a little bit of who we are, through our culture, through our food. And the way I practice Guelaguetza today, really, I think today more than ever, is just knowing that, one cannot live without the other, right? Like we need everyone in this world to kind of live in harmony with each other. And that really is, to me, the essence of what Guelaguetza is.
So if I were to bring you a dozen of my Yucatan tamales, then you would reciprocate with a dozen of your moles.
Of course. And you know what? Also, I think of course. And I think, also, I think in Mexico, I think in general in Mexico, I can only speak in Oaxaca, but I think this is like a general Mexican thing. But I know Oaxaca is very, very strong. When you walk into someone's home, you really can't walk in there empty-handed. Like, you have to bring something, and nothing huge or anything, but, it's, whether it be, a pound of beans, or you bring, a casserole of food, or you bring, even like candles or mezcal. In Oaxaca, when you walk into someone's home, or flowers, you bring something with you, and that is sort of like your Guelaguetza, because they're hosting you in your house. It's like you offering something as well. And I think it's a beautiful tradition that happens in Oaxaca that I love being part of every time I'm there. Every time when I'm there in my mom's house, she always has people just drop in, and I think like that doesn't happen in the U.S. I think now people just don't drop it into your house or come to your home just randomly, and I think that's like one beautiful thing I love about Oaxaca.
Yeah, and we all, as Mexicans, we all love giving. It's not like oh God, I got to remember to take something. It's like, I really want to take this to my friend. And in the Yucatan, as we enter a restaurant, if there's people already eating, you can't walk by their table without saying, like, enjoy,
Right.
So that's it. And I had a fabulous experience in Oaxaca. It started a pouring rain, and suddenly everybody in their chairs got up and scooted towards the stage and scooted into the middle. And I was like, oh, what is this? What's happening? And they automatically just made room for the people that weren't under the awning. And I thought, these people live the Guelaguetza. It's not just like something you do 2 weeks in July. It's like
for sure.
And it was fabulous. Okay, Javier, let's get you in the conversation here. I read that you wrote your first article when you were 16, and then by 21 you were writing for Savor. So give us a little more detail on that. How did that happen? I mean, 5 years is an incredibly short time to go from a first article to writing for Savor.
Yes, I was lucky enough to find my passion for first writing and then food in that order at a very young age. So I just kept it going, and as we all know, there aren't many Latino voices out in the food media, especially young Latino food voices. Back then there weren't many. Now there are a few more. But it's still very rare. So I just kept it going, and around when I was 21 or 20, that's actually when I met Bricia and her brother Fernando and the rest of the Lopez family. So that's how far back we all go.
So how did you connect with Savor? Did you like crash their office, or did someone introduce you to someone who knew someone, or?
Oh man, that story is so funny.
Good.
A friend of a friend has told me, hey, my husband went to college with the editor-in-chief of Savor magazine, and back then his name is James Losey. He's also a judge. He's also a judge on Top Chef.
What's her name? I missed her name.
Oh, his name was James Oseland. James, and then the last name is Oseland, and he was the editor for the longest time, I think for like 13 years or 15 years or something. At the time he was like, well, I have this number, you should call him. And he gave me this friend of a friend gave me the number. I didn't know what to do with it because I was 20 years old, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with this? I was like nervous, and I was like, what am I going to tell him or call him? And then it took me like 8 months or something, and then I finally called him, and then he's like, well, I'm actually in LA filming for Top Chef, like show me around some spots. And I just picked him up, some stranger, and I showed him around, and we ended up we hit it off, and we had chemistry, and he liked kind of where I was coming from and my style. So he just, at point blank, me not having that much experience for national publications, he just took a risk on me. He just said, hey, well, where's your he noticed that my family was from Zacatecas, and that Zacatecas didn't get as much coverage as other states. So this was back then what I like to call like the glory age of like media. So he actually flew my mom and myself out, and I went to go write a cover story, and I just wrote my heart out. And actually, those were my first recipes for very rural Mexican cooking, which I feel is similar all around Mexico. It's all centered by like beans, by various beans, various cheeses, fresh masa tortillas. So that was it, and that was kind of like my break into stardom, I guess, in journalism, at least.
Very cool. That's a great story. It's always nice to have those pop back in your life, and you go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So,
yeah, thank you.
So, Bricia, your dad founded Guelaguetza in 1994. Did your mom work in the restaurant, or was she a stay-at-home mom, or how did that work?
So my mom had basically like 3 jobs, and I think that's what every mom nowadays probably has. I think that before I had this huge realization about my mom's role in the restaurant, before writing the book and after writing the book, and interviewing both of them, and having a perspective of their experience, me like now seeing it from an adult and as a mother. My mom was raising 4 children at the time. She was also she was a housekeeper, so her life really revolved waking up at 5:30 in the morning. She would get her get breakfast for her kids ready, try to get 4 kids out of the door by 7 a.m. And then she would drive us to school, which was about 45 minutes away from where we lived. We would drive 45 minutes, drop us off. Now, where we went to school, it was a public school, but it was a very affluent, nice area. So she would stay in the area. She would clean homes. She had about 3 different homes that she would clean, 4 different homes that she would clean throughout the week. She would finish her job cleaning. She would pick us up from school. Usually we would get something to eat. We had a lot of drive-through experiences from like El Pollo Loco or Yoshinoya. And then from there, she'd drop us off at school, and then she'd go to the restaurant, help my dad, with the restaurant, whether it be, closing out, or my mom was always the person, helping my dad with the finances, figuring out how things would work, make sure the bills would get paid, but also helping out, in the kitchen or in the front. And then both of them would get home around 11 p.m. and then she would do it all over again. So, on Saturdays and Sundays, and, we didn't go to school and she didn't have to clean home, she would be at the restaurant from, 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. And sometimes early in her childhood, we would stay home. And then as we got older, we would go to the restaurant and help out. I started, on the weekends, sometimes my mom and I would drive to Santa Barbara and we would set up shop in the back of this lady's house. And we would, I guess nowadays we would call it a pop-up, and sounds really cool and fancy. And back then it was just, we would just really set up an illegal restaurant in the back of this woman's house in Santa Barbara. I would make tortillas and empanadas. She would make layudas, and we would take one other girl. We would usually Saturday super early, around 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And then we would come home around Sunday. We would be home like around 9 p.m. or so, in bed by like 8, 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and then go to school on Monday. And that was throughout my middle school years. And that through high school, then, the restaurant started growing. We had a second location by the time I was in 10th grade. So then that kind of started my career in the industry, where I started as a hostess, as a server, and everything in between. And my mom we all worked full time. So, it's hard. It's a lot of work that goes into opening a family restaurant in the beginning.
Yeah, that sounds like our story a little bit, like all hands on deck and everybody does what needs to get it done. Yeah. So let's talk about the look of the book. I was in Pasadena the other day. Yes? Oh, I was in Pasadena, and I looked over and I saw this beautiful book, and I said Oaxaca. I'm like, oh, my friend Bricia has a Oaxacan restaurant. Let me check this out. And then I walked up and I was like, oh my God, it's Bricia's book. So it's so cool. I love the color, the joyful color, the vivid color. So was the art and the photos your idea or Javier's idea, or did you give the artist free rein to design the book? Tell us a little bit about how the book came to be.
Yeah, I remember the first time I received the first kind of proposals for the cover. So I was in my kitchen. I think Javier was with me, and we were testing recipes as we usually were. And when I got the book, so first were the book, the pictures. So I'll go into the pictures first. When we first sent the proposal, we had different photographers that I had planned on having for the book. They're great photographers. I love their work. We worked with them for the proposal, and I really thought that they were going to be the ones we were going to work with. I really, really thought that. And then once it came to actually, following through, and then my editor reached out to me and said, hey, it was time to, think about the photography and you know, who'd you like to work with, I just thought, oh, maybe I should really look and see who else is out there. You know, maybe there is someone who out there is better, because I do know that when it comes to cookbooks, you know, photos are probably, I mean, it's hard to say, you know, obviously you want to have an incredible recipe repertoire, and you want to make sure the recipes work, but I think people eat with their eyes as well, so, you know, pictures are super important. So I asked my publisher, Abrams, to send me a few recommendations, and, you know, like, have you worked with photographers that you liked? And I started looking through, and my editor told me, look, I have a couple that I can recommend. There's this one guy that I truly love. You know, he's great. She told me he's very expensive and he's sought after, you know, but you can give him a call and you can talk to him. But I also recommend you look through different books and see what you like. So I started looking through different books, and I saw another photographer that I saw a book that I liked their pictures. I was drawn to them. So I ended up kind of talking to three different photographers. The first one that I originally thought we were going to have, the photographer my editor recommended, and a third one. Now, when I talked to the guy that my editor recommended, I felt like I had an instant connection with him. And I told him, you know, I don't really have, like, I can't really afford you, but I wanted to talk to you and see how you work, and also allowed me to understand how food photographers work. And this guy, he's in his late 50s, super seasonal. He's Australian. He's worked in like hundreds of cookbooks. And we just had an incredible conversation for like 40 minutes. And he told me, I'll do it for anything. Like, I've always wanted to work with Oaxaca. I've always wanted to go there. And don't worry about my fee. Like, just tell me what you want to pay me and I'll do it. Like, it's not a big deal. And then I spoke to the other two, and then I got the proposals back. And something just caught my eye about this guy. I feel like his photography is so timeless. And I love modern photography. Listen, I love these websites that show food so clean and so nice, and, you know, the different colored backgrounds. And I love that. I love Instagram photography. I really, truly do. But I just felt like if I was going to represent Oaxaca, like, how could I best do it? And what is the best way to do it that it's timeless and, like, it wouldn't really age us? It wouldn't really put us in a box of like, oh, this was shot during this era when everybody was doing these types of shots. Like, what can we do? And, you know, again, my you know, we were it kind of, and my agent was kind of opposed to me going that route, because he wanted me to go a little more modern. And he was like, I feel like he's a little boring. And I'm like, I don't see it that way. I see it super artistic and timeless. And, like, I feel like, and even my husband, when he saw me, he was like, wow, he reminds me of maybe, like, he said, he reminds me of like Michael Scorsese, like super timeless, like traditional, but, you know, like, there's like, I would look at his pictures and he would capture the essence of people without trying, and everything looks so real. And then, so I ended up going with him, and so that was the way we chose the photographer. It was pure instinct. And then
really glad you went with your gut, because
yeah, and thank you. And then the way the cover came across, you know, that really was a proposal from my publisher. So my publisher, my editor sent me, so she said, you know, I have these covers that I'm ready for you to see. And then she sent them to me, and I was expecting a picture of a dish, because I think, like, in my mind I had always seen like a picture of a dish, because that's what cookbooks look like, right? Like, you see a picture of food. And when she sent it to me, I was like a little confused. And the first thing I thought was like, oh shit, did I make the wrong choice by choosing this photographer? Like, did they not like any of his pictures? Like, what happened? But I kind of sat on it for a while, and then when I got that, actually what was happening, like, at the time when I got the proposal, they were, I don't know, maybe 20 cookbooks laid out on my table, because I was kind of looking to them and studying them. And I looked up and I realized all the books kind of looked the same. right? And like they're all they're all the same. Not the same, but they all kind of look similar. They all have a picture of a dish or the picture of the author in front of a counter smiling with an apron. Like it's always kind of like one or the other, right? And then I looked down and I looked at a post and I thought, wow, like, and I thought, what a juxtaposition between the classic photography with a little bit more edge on the type, on the fonts, on the cover, on the art inside. And I feel like that really describes who I am. I mean, I have a lot of heritage. I'm, born and raised in Oaxaca. I'm very traditional in so many ways, but I'm also from Los Angeles. I'm also, I consider myself someone who, likes things that are a little bit more modern, so I'm both. I'm both modern, but I'm also traditional. And I feel like when I look at the book together was really a reflection of the old Oaxaca with the new Oaxaca, which represented my family and I. So that's sort of like how this book came together. And I think it really does really reflect who we are as a new generation.
Yes, the first thing I noticed is kind of like an Art Nouveau thing. And then I got closer and I was like, and the word Oaxaca has so much magic in it. So, and then I saw Oaxaca and I was like, wow. So fabulous choices. I just love it.
Thank you.
All right, Javier.
And also, my agent wasn't happy with the cover in the beginning too.
What did you say? Your agent what?
Also, my agent wasn't really happy with the cover in the beginning too, because he's like, "Wait, what happened to the picture of the food?" And I was like, "No, I think I'm gonna go with this one." So I think it's just about to show you that like you should always listen to your instinct. People are always gonna have opinions. Yeah, people are always gonna have opinions. That as long as you're happy with your choice, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. So Javier, I read that you were a scout, a restaurant scout for Jonathan Gold. Do you have a cool story about that? What was your favorite story of working with Jonathan and like lighting up his world with a restaurant that you discovered?
Yeah, rest in peace, for sure, forever. Miss him every day. Let's see, it's that moment in my life is one of those moments where you just never forget where you were and what you were doing when you got that email, when you got that phone call, when it happened, And it was a Friday evening, and I got an email from Russ Parsons at LA Times, who used to be the old editor, and he was like, hey, so I mean, pretty much the email said, Jonathan Gold is only one belly, and he can only eat so much, and the city's food scene is quickly developing and evolving at a great rate, and and Jonathan Gold trusts you and your palate for a new series that we're doing called the Jonathan Gold Scouting Report, which was a very stripped down, essential, a short restaurant review, and and it was a Friday night. I was out having a beer in the Monterey Park in San Gabriel Valley, and I just remember man, this is that just made my life up until that point, I mean, because up until then, I had, he had been like a close mentor. He's always helped me out kind of under the radar by putting in a good word with editors, with just people, hey, there's this writer from East LA, and he's not like your typical affluent background, because at the end of the day, a lot of food media can be very privileged, and it can be very targeted to privileged demographics, and that's not the angle that I was coming from at all. So as far as one of the restaurants, perhaps my happiest memory, or one of the best memories was being his restaurant scout was I always like to say that Jonathan Gold was like a weird deal, like your awkward deal or something, just because the way he was socially. So we would never really meet up and casually have lunch like how people would probably envision. It was quite the opposite. It was just hey, if I really like this place that I felt was really special, I would just kind of tip him off and be like, hey, there's this really cool place that's doing this really cool dish, and it's unique because no one else is doing it, blah blah blah, and he'll be like, okay, cool, as his load was as his restaurant writing load was made higher and higher by the Times, one of the places that he, right before he passed away, actually, I found out that he actually went. So up until like a few months before he passed away, he was still respecting the opinion that I had on restaurants, which is like, means so much to me. And it was a mariscos place here. Actually, it's actually a mariscos truck here in Highland Park that I go to often because they do a special aguachile and a special ceviche. And then of course he didn't tell me himself, but the owner of the mariscos truck told me, hey, this man just came and I think he's the critic, like. And I'm like, oh, so it's like up until like a few months before he passed away, I was still serving as a civilian restaurant scout, so that made me really happy.
It must be nice to be Jonathan Gold's secret.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your collaboration with Bricia. How did that work out? How did you make it work? Did you guys argue, or you were always peachy keen with each other?
This is the last question, just so that we can.
Do you want to? You know what?
Okay, well then, if it's the last question, let's change it. Let's
do Bricia.
You're doing. Please. Okay, all right, Bricia then. So I love that you guys use molcajetes and grind your own herbs and everything. And I read every single page of your book, and to me it was interesting that, for instance, frijoles de la olla have epazote, but when you make pasta de frijol negro, you use avocado leaves. Is that just a tradition, or is there a reason behind that we can't fathom?
I think that, when you spend a few weeks cooking with the women in Oaxaca, you realize how essential and how important herbs are in our cooking, and how herbs are really a really important ingredient to everything we make. Then, and because Oaxaca is so lush and so beautiful and so green, there's like a funny saying that, in Oaxaca you throw a seed out, like if you're walking around, you're eating an apple and you just throw it away, like in a week later it'll be this beautiful apple tree full of like heirloom apples that you will absolutely love. So there's so many herbs and spices, and avocado leaf, I would say avocado leaf and yerba santa are the two herbs that are the most abundant and the most used in our cooking. Aside from maybe poleo is another one that's really, really big. But it really does change the flavor. And when you have pasta de frijol, it either has to have avocado leaf if you're having it for tlayudas, or poleo if you're having it for like something else in a different region. So our recipes are from the Valley of Oaxaca. We have a few recipes from the Isthmus that we have, like the garnachas, we have the molotes with beans, but primarily our cooking is from the Valley of Oaxaca, where avocado leaf and yerba santa are abundant and are very, very popular. Frijoles de la olla are always going to be with epazote all the time, but yes, pasta de frijol definitely has to be with avocado leaf. And that really is the way we make it at the restaurants, the way we make it at my house, that's the way my mom makes it, my grandma makes it, my aunts make it, there's no changing it. And in Oaxaca, when you first have it, that's sort of like the taste you have, and you're like, oh my God, like this is really different. Like, what's different in these beans? Like, what is in these beans, and what is it, like that taste that you have never had before? And it creates a new memory. And I think that's why people love Oaxaca so much. I think it's because they go to a place, they eat something they've never had before, and their brain makes an instant connection with the location. And it's a new food memory that you're creating, and it just touches your heart and your soul and your palate and your brain all at the same time. And that's why people just fall in love with the place, because it's there for the first time that they re-experience Mexican cooking in a different way, creating a new food memory for them.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to close with my favorite quote from your book, where it's talking about the food and eating it, and it says, all bets are off, and slurping it down, even licking the bowl, is fair game. That is just one awesome cookbook you guys did. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Comadre Karen?
Oh, okay. Comadre Julia is stalwart of Las Comadres, who for many years nourished our New York City comadrazos with love and passion. She is an avid reader and attends all the book conferences possible to learn about books by Latinx authors and to share this info with our comadres, compadres, and friends. Julia and Edgar now live in Loganville, Georgia. Comadre Julia will manage the question and answer. Comadre Julia, you're on.
Thank you so much, Karen, and welcome, Comadre Bricia and Compadre Javier, to our teleconference tonight. As you know, your cookbook was sent out to comadres around the country, and a lot of them, as well as myself, tested recipes and made recipes for their families and sent in some comments and questions. And I wanted to share some of those thoughts with you, if you would mind.
Okay.
So first of all, our comadre Magdalena from South Austin wanted to thank you for the photo that you had in the book of all the different chiles. She said that she typically gets so confused with the different types of dry chilies, and your photo has helped her tremendously because she took a picture of it, and now when she goes to the store, she knows what type she's buying.
That's amazing. And tell her she's not alone. It happens to me still.
And she says she always mixes 3 types of chilies for her enchilada sauce, and she never knew what she was doing. Every time she made it, it came out differently, and this cookbook has brought it all together for her.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, her mother, she is also a salsa lover, and she loves the salsa de molcajete. I hope I said that correctly. Her mom is
Molcajete.
Molcajete. Okay. Her mom is from Zacatecas, and she has her
Zacatecas.
and she has her original one from 1950. Her mom is 91 and doing well, and she's happy to have that. She's also been trying to make a good salsa roja básica, but it lacks something, and now she knows what to do. So your book has really helped our readers with, filling in the blanks, as you would say, for their recipes, which is a wonderful thing. And she wanted to close by saying that she loved your dad's story and his perseverance, and it reminded her of her grandpa, Jesus Lopez, that sold his cattle so that Pancho Villa would not take it away. And he went to L.A. and opened a tortilla factory restaurant called La Morenita. He was successful, and then they sold it to another family.
That's a beautiful story. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Our South Austin group was going to meet at a Oaxacan restaurant, but of course, because of the conditions nowadays, it's been postponed, and they can't wait to go in the near future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please support your local restaurants as much as you can during this time.
Another comadre, Virginia Ruiz. I'm sorry. I apologize. Virginia Ruiz wrote that this book couldn't have come at a better time. She loved reading your story, your family history, and, of course, the history of the restaurant. But she loved trying out some of the recipes with her family. Stress baking and cooking, during this time. So far, they've tried the agua de Jamaica, plátanos al horno, and the choco flan. All were terrific, but the choco flan is the biggest hit.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to try
that's so
that.
Awesome. I've been making I've been making different agua fresca, honestly, during this time. I think in the book, I talk about my memories about agua fresca and how my mom would have home-cooked meals every single day, and agua frescas all the time in the fridge, different flavors. And, if one great thing has come out of this whole thing for our family, it's just me, living that life right now to where I can make, fresh meals for my family 3 times a day, every day, and have a different agua fresca for my son. So agua frescas to me are very, very special to my heart. And agua de Jamaica is very easy and super delicious for the flavor to make at home.
Yeah, it's I love agua frescas also, and the hardest thing right now for me, I live in Georgia, is getting out to the market that has all the international food so that I can make these recipes. So I have to wait a little bit to go out there to be able to get them, but I can't wait to be able to do that. We had Comadre Maria Gonzalez, who, her and her husband both cook and bake a lot at home, and they loved the cookbook. They are always very excited, and they're longtime fans of your restaurant, so this was a huge treat for them. Particularly useful given the stay-at-home orders nowadays. They took some pictures, and we shared them with our social media person, so she's going to put them there. She did have a question, and it had to do with tortillas. They cook a lot, and they realized that a good tortilla makes a huge difference in a meal. They asked, what brands pre-made do you recommend, and are they accessible to the public?
There is a company that I really like. They're called Blue Pinole, I believe. Let me just double check that on my Instagram.
That's it.
It is? Okay.
Yeah,
they make great tortillas. They even make them different colors, different corn. They're a Latino family. It's a great guy. They work so hard. I've had their tortillas in my fridge, and they taste delicious. They taste great. So that's the brand that I would recommend. You can get them online. They ship them to you, if I'm not mistaken. They're made out of corn. I think also a lot of in my book I talk about, obviously, nixtamalization and doing your own corn. I understand that that's very far-fetched for a lot of people. Maybe even in these days where you're at home, right? Because you need a special wood grinder, and it's a lot. But I encourage people to use, masa harina. It's a great way to just start, just with a little bit of water, and the masa harina has been done. There's a lot of great organic brands. I believe Macienda has a brand that they will ship to your house as well. Then that way you can just kind of make, your own tortillas at home, and it really is just, I think the idea, I think we have come to this time in our lives where people are okay with making things like pancakes on a regular basis on the weekend, yet making a tortilla out of masa harina that's just literally flour and water seems daunting to them, and saving that on their fridge, which to me blows my mind, because it's like a lot more work to do pancakes, right?
Right.
So I think it's just this like switch in your brain that we have to make. That, I mean, if you want them ready to make, Pinole Azul is a great company. If you want to just play around, there's a company called Macienda, but also even Bob's Red Mill that you can buy online on Amazon. It's not bad, and that'll get you kind of like into it. And again, just make sure it comes from a reliable source, that it has a good company. I love that company, Bob's Red Milk. It's employee owned. They use great ingredients. It's all organic corn, so I think that that's what's important when you get that taste. But I'm not against using masa harina if it's sourced correctly, and supporting businesses like Pinole Azul that makes great tortillas.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and I also want to add that you can also buy avocado leaves. It's actually like an Amazon choice item for $6.
Oh.
And they're dried, which is as good as it can get here. If you don't have access to fresh avocado leaves in your backyard, or if you're by a neighbor's yard, and also Soja Santa is also available on Amazon Prime. So both those items, as when you're reading the book, you're like, where am I going to find this? You can actually find that online pretty easily nowadays.
Yeah, because in the market that I go to, I see the banana leaves that are in the chilled section and stuff like that. Like I said, because of what's going on now, I haven't been able to go and explore now that I know all these other items to look for, because there's that one recipe with the egg cooked in the hoja that just
Yeah, like that requires a fresh hoja santa.
Okay.
And believe it or not, there's actually like online you can just go hoja santa, and if you're able to grow it in your home, it's like a weed. It grows without a problem. And I think like you should just I highly always encourage people to grow hoja santa in their home. It's very easy to maintain. It requires no work, and it just grows. For that recipe, you need a fresh one.
Okay.
And also, our store, we have store.ilovemole.com. I believe by the end of, by mid-April, we should be able to have all of these items, like the chiles and the herbs, listed for you guys to be able to get them at your house.
Okay, and that was ilovemole.com?
Right, and just put shop. It's just basically store.ilovemole.com.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll keep an eye out for that one.
Sure, yeah.
And one of our readers also wanted to ask, when is the best time they want to travel to Oaxaca? When is the best time to go to avoid the big crowds? Because they know that there's a time.
Yeah. To avoid the big crowds, there's 2 seasons that I personally really, really like to go. That would be March. Like March, I love to go before, like 2 weeks before Semana Santa. So right, like just like 2 weeks before any sort of spring break or any of that, because it's sort of like calm before the storm. It's like before summer. The weather, it's hot, but like not too crazy. It doesn't rain a lot, like it does during the summer. It'll pour on you. So I really like that. I really like that time. And also my second, like my other very, like I think it's my favorite time of year to go is it's right after Independence Day and before Day of the Dead. So kind of like end of September, beginning of October, like that sweet spot of the last 2 weeks of September and the first 2 weeks of October, I think it's absolutely perfect to go to Oaxaca. Like everything is quiet. Everyone's already done partying for September 16th. No one's traveling. Everyone's kind of getting back to work. And, before the celebrations, the Day of the Dead start the week before Day of the Dead. So it just gets a little crazy and people start traveling. So I would say like those 3 weeks, I think it's the streets are empty. You can get reservations everywhere. There's always something happening though, like there's always events going on in Oaxaca because everyone's trying to kind of fill that void of slowness. So there's so many things happening, yet the streets aren't packed. You can walk. So that's my favorite time to go. Yeah,
that sounds, that's actually my favorite time to travel anywhere is like the end of September, early October. But yeah, that sounds like a perfect time to go there and join in. Our Denver Comadres wanted to also let you know that they made a bunch of the recipes, including frijoles de la olla, pasta de frijol negro, huevos con nopalillos, arroz con leche con dulce de garbanzos, which I can't wait to make. And I myself really made the pollo al oregano.
Actually, I think I'm going to do that.
Yep. Excellent. And Karen, you wanted to mention a couple of?
Oh, well, I made the arroz con leche con dulce de garbanzos. I loved it. Yeah, it was real different than just putting the raisins, And so I guess that, once you have leftovers and you put it in the fridge, I guess it's best to keep them separate, right? Like not mix in the garbanzos with the rice.
Yes, everything is always separate. It's kind of like a topping.
Yeah, okay. And then the rice gets real sticky if it absorbs the milk, so I guess you can add a little water or just regular milk to kind of make it a little more moist, Is that what you do kind of, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, well, that was a real neat, delicious dish. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Was that it, Karen? Did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, that was it.
Okay, okay.
That
And
recipe.
is Comadre Lola on the line? No?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Oh, okay. Comadre Lola, was there something that you wanted to mention?
I actually do. I have a couple of questions if I can still ask them for both Javier and Bricia.
Okay, quickly.
Number one is if you could just walk us through why you went with a publisher versus self-publishing is one question. And for Javier, the question I had for him was, I remember when I listened to your podcast on the Super Mamas, you mentioned that you had to become more familiar with recipe writing. And I think you may have mentioned that you took a workshop, or I just wanted to know a little bit about that process and how you went from your style of writing to writing in it for a cookbook.
Yeah, sure. So, hi Lola,
how are you?
How are you?
Great talking to you. I love Lola. Lola's, we've been in Oaxaca together too, and I love her so much. So why we went self-publishing to going with a publisher, the kind of journey to writing the book for me was different. Like writing a cookbook or writing a book has been something that's always been like in my mind. Like I would love to do it. It really started 5 years, maybe longer than that, like almost 6 years ago now. A man walked into my restaurant who was sent by Jonathan Gold, again, and told me that he was looking, he was looking to represent families, and he's a book agent and wanted to sign me. And back then I was like, sure, like, okay, so what does that mean? So he explained to me the process of of what it would be like to kind of have like writing a cookbook with a publisher. Basically is one, you write a proposal, 2, you send it to publishers, and 3, you hope that they're interested. And the whole process can last about a couple of years from beginning to publishing, or sometimes even 3 years. So it took me, I was like, okay, sure, whatever, I'll sign you with you. I mean, it's all like, whatever, what's the big deal? The work came though in finding a writing partner, because I knew that I wasn't going to, I've never written a cookbook before, and like the idea of sitting down and writing an entire book seemed a little daunting to me, or even writing a proposal. So the first thing my agent did was send me an example of what book proposals look like. So he sent it to me, I saw it, and then said, let's find you a writing partner. And it took me about 2 years to actually take that serious. And I had lunch with a great girlfriend of mine, and told me that, she said, why don't you call Javi, which is Javier, and, his wife and I are great friends. Javi and I have known each other for a decade. And I don't know why it never really occurred to me to call Javi. I think because he'd never written a book either, and also because he was somewhere where he wasn't able to. And then he had just left his job that didn't allow him to write cookbooks, so he was almost like a free agent. And honestly, like from the moment him and I had a conversation, it was like within 3 months that we had a contract with a publisher. So we both kind of collaborated on the proposal. I showed him what I wanted. I told him exactly what I wanted it to look like, be like. He wrote the proposal. I don't know how long it took you, Javier, I forget. And I hired photographers. We made their proposal look super beautiful. My agent, he knows pretty much every editor and publisher. So we mailed out actual boxes with the proposal printed, with mole boxes, and we shipped them out to every editor, to every major publishing house. And a week and a half later, we had meetings set up for us. So we went to the meetings, and then they pretty much they send out offers. And that's kind of how we decided. The route of self-publishing it just seemed to me like, honestly, not knowing anything, it seemed to me like a lot of work. But I think just doing a book itself is a lot of work, period, no matter what avenue you go to. I think I was very blessed and to be put in a position where an agent kind of walked me through the whole thing, and that publishers were interested in our story and in my restaurant, and we were really able to sell our story well, and go with the publisher that we thought would represent us the best and really valued us the most. And Javi, you can answer the second question.
Yeah, it's the first question. But to add to that, chemistry is really, really important between the author and the writer for a book. So definitely make sure that you can be together for a long time and not want to, kill each other. So that was really important. And then as far as how did I learn to write the recipes? Because I found my passion when I was young, I started reading cookbooks like if they were novels or like if they were books on their own. So that really helped because I stored a bunch of knowledge about just how to write recipes, even if I didn't have to. But then when I actually did like my first ones when I was 21, it felt pretty natural to me. So that definitely helps. So if you amass cookbooks or if you borrow them or if you just read them like if they're textbooks or like they're books. And then secondly, I did attend a workshop as part of the my wife works for the International Association of Culinary Professionals, which is this resource and like a group that once a year that have a conference, and it's all food media. So if you're a food media person and you want to write a cookbook, there's like a bunch of panels and discussions and workshops like the one that I attended. But that workshop was more to a little more like, for example, do you spell out 1 teaspoon or do you write out 1 tablespoon? There's like some problematic language that some people are that recipe writers are split on. Like, for example, to use the word set aside versus not use it. Another one is like, do you have to list the amount of water in the recipe, or just add it in the directions? So all of these are kind of subtleties, but honestly, just as long as if you have a few recipes that you want to write, I recommend just doing it for yourself, or if you have a food blog or for Instagram, just doing it on there, and and learn as you go, because that's the good thing about recipe writing is it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and because it really is all about subtleties and details. So yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for those questions, Comadre Lola.
You're welcome. Thank you, Javi. Thank you, Bricia.
Okay. Comadres Bricia and Dora and Compadre Javier and Comadres Karen and Lola who asked questions, we are so grateful for the insightful interviews and for spending time with us this evening. We enjoyed your sharing of perspectives and insights from your cooking, your work, and your life. We treasure the opportunity to learn about you and about your cookbook and your restaurant, and we truly feel more connected to you. We thank publisher Harry and Abrams for their support of this teleconference and for their generous gift of books for winners of early registration. We thank our audience for their patience earlier this evening with our technical difficulties and for taking the time to join us for this teleconference. And thank you for those that submitted questions and comments about this book. We'd like to thank Comadre Maria Ferrer for the media coordination and the wonderful Twitter chats this evening, and Comadre Dora Abreu for the web work she does for us. Without this volunteer leadership team, this book club, and all the associated work would not happen. Mil gracias. Please remember to carry the books you're reading, always displaying the title and shamelessly advertise what you're reading. Buy books to support our authors, and if your library does not have a book you want to read, ask them to order it. And please, attend your local book club meetings and bring a friend or two. Remember, it's open to everyone, men and women, and not just Latinos. Our April 2020 teleconference will be held on Monday, April 27th. We will be celebrating the Mes del Niños with 2 wonderful selections. Our book of the month is Each Tiny Spark by Pablo Cartaya. Award-winning author Pablo brings us a deeply moving middle-grade novel about a daughter and a father finding their way back to each other in the face of their changing family and community. Our Conversations with Selections are a collection of books written by Susie Jaramillo and Stephen Wolf Pereira. The Tiny Traveler's Treasure Quest series takes its readers on a fun-filled journey to discover what makes each country special, with search and find features on every spread. Their Canticos line features nursery rhymes and songs in English and Spanish, which has grown to include videos, plus animals, and now a new clothing line for babies. Look for the teleconference registration announcement coming soon. Mil gracias to all. Stay safe y buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.